Hello and welcome to another CreekCast, our first one of the 2025 calendar year, and I guess our first one officially of what will be our countdown to the 2025 football season. Never too early to get into it. As I'm talking with head football coach Drew Carter, I'm director of media Brooks Carter, and last time you saw us was on the season recap of the 2024 season on the Coahulla Creek Football Show, and Coach, we've had some stuff kind of go on between now and then. We kind of put a bow on the 2024 season with our end of the year banquet. Got some more awards that have come out, but also because football season never truly stops in Georgia or in the South in general with high school football, college or pro. We've already got some stuff to look ahead to in 2025 as we've already got some early watch lists and that kind of stuff. So we'll get into that all throughout the show today. First and foremost, how have things kind of been going? I know this is kind of a slower part of the year for you. Do you like this part of the year? Is it kind of a recovery thing, or are you always kind of geared up and ready to go?
Yes and no. There's definitely a physical recovery in terms of just the amount of time that I'm on campus, in the office, on the practice field. So you don't have as much of that going on. I guess it's a different version of the mental strain because it's, as you mentioned, kind of putting a bow on the previous season and then all the things that have to be done throughout the off season. I mean, the obvious things of the off season program of your player development, but then you talk about all the logistical things of starting to get volunteers ready for the next season, gear for the next season, all that inventory type stuff. So I guess you could call it a break, but it's just a different mode of the mental strain, I guess.
Yeah, probably stuff that you honestly didn't have to deal with until you were a head coach. There's a lot of administrative tasks that I imagine you're doing this time of year.
Yes and no, because I guess as a younger coach, as an assistant coach, I always knew that this was kind of the end goal, or however you might want to say it. So I always made sure I was trying to assert myself that way it wouldn't be brand new. And I was fortunate enough to work for some head coaches that would give me some of those tasks so that I could get my feet wet with it. So yeah, definitely.
So a couple of weeks ago, had the end of season banquet for 2024, and we had a few awards that we gave out at that banquet. Several of which went to Isaac McGill. So we'll start with him. He was our Colt Award recipient and four-star General Award recipient, and the other one I'm trying to remember which one. I think he was a team captain as well. So several awards that he was a recipient of. Probably the most prestigious of those within our own building being the Colt Award.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's hard to define what is it, but we try to, you know, leave it as vague as possible for intentional purposes because we just want that award to be given to the guy that embodies everything that we emphasize in our program and a guy that lives by the Creek standard. And he does that. He did that in his time here, from a day in, day out basis, just the way he lived Coahulla Creek football from the time he woke up in the morning to the time that he laid down in the bed. I hope that that's a message for younger guys of if you're going to progress through our program and maximize your potential, that's the guy to model yourself after.
Yeah, and obviously we knew he was a team captain. That was announced prior to the season, but a nice little award plaque that went to him as well as Chevy Joyce, who is now a two-time captain, as he'll be a returning senior this year. Most Valuable Player award went to Tyler Douglas, and he might be the youngest player in school history to ever receive that award. I would imagine he might be.
I know in my time here, that has been a senior each and every year since I have been here. Um, Tip of the cap to Tyler. A little bit of that's probably, the circumstances of the season. It was a tough season. Our senior class was a smaller class this year. And, Tyler's a 2-year starter as a sophomore. So obviously he's got some ability and a skill set that lends himself to that type of award. But the way we think about that is your most valuable player is, you're not looking at stats alone or one thing alone. Who's the one guy that you literally can't get through a Friday night without him? And that's him.
Yeah, and I think one thing you can certainly look at Tyler's numbers. He was the team's leading rusher, one of the team's leading receivers, was leader on the team in tackles. Literally all over the field. You could put him anywhere. He was at running back. He was at wide receiver. He returned kicks. I think at times when we had some linebacker depth issues due to injury, he lined up at linebacker. He started at safety now for 2 years. The durability, I think, is what's you can look at stats, but the durability to be able to stay on the field, and he's not the only one I don't know if I would love to have maybe a suggestion for an award moving forward for a team award, maybe an Ironman award. I think Chevy Joyce could certainly have been a recipient of that, as he played. I think playing both ways, having played at tight end, when you can play left tackle and defensive end and basically never come off the field. Um, but Tyler, his durability was unbelievable this year.
Yeah, it really was. And, it's been a learning lesson for us as a coaching staff too, because the off season, we're devoting some time to figure out how can we scale back some of those roles so that when he is on the field, we're really maximizing what he does for our team. So that's kind of the challenge for us moving forward as a staff with him.
A couple of the other awards, the other four-star general award, we give out two of those, went to senior Carson Weaver. And then most improved goes to another sophomore, Brandon Manus, who he had a really good year this year. Was forced a couple of fumbles, tied a school record for most forced fumbles in a game against Murray County. Um, I think he developed as one of the best open field tacklers we had on the team. He was really good in tackling guys in space, whether it be on kickoffs or when little bubble screens or when like runs kind of got strung out to the perimeter towards his cornerback position. I was really impressed with him a number of times this year from his cornerback position.
Yeah, really, like you said, really happy with how he progressed. And that's kind of an overall look with him too, not only how he got better throughout this season, but the jumps that he made from freshman to sophomore year too. Really a testament to his commitment to his own development and how he works through the off season and obviously in practice during the season. So yeah, all those things you said, he checks those boxes, and we get him back again next year is probably the best part about him.
For the next 2 years. In fact, part of that talented sophomore class. Looking at some other awards that weren't team specific, the Dalton Daily Citizen came out with their all area team, and we had 6 guys named on that. We had 2 first teamers with Jackson Lowry and Isaac McGill. We had 2 second teamers with Tyler Douglas and Chevy Joyce, and then honorable mention was Kobe King and Andrew Russell. Kind of mirrored what we had for our all region guys. All 6 of those guys were also in the exact same spots on the all region teams too. So just another kind of tip of the cap to those guys for their performance this year.
Absolutely. And you look at those two things in separate lenses, and both of them are awesome accolades in their own way. I feel like our region's really tough. So anybody that's making that team, that's a huge accomplishment. And then when you look at all area, we have a combination of, we've got a couple of bigger schools classification wise in our area, along with a private school in our area. So I think that helps us know where these guys are stacking up against different competition levels as well. So tip the cap for those guys that they're able to get that recognition.
Yeah. It's with all the schools in Whitfield and Murray County. We had 3 playoff teams, I think, locally, in that coverage area that the Daily Citizen covers. As you mentioned, a higher classification school in Dalton, albeit they struggled a little bit this year too, kind of similarly, a similar situation to what we were in this year. But nonetheless, a lot of talent around the area, and always a big thing to be able to get on that all area team. I know when I was growing up, if you got put on the all area team, I used to really think really highly of that.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. But while we're kind of looking, talking about last year's awards, looking ahead to this upcoming season, Northwest Georgia football, which I'm a contributor for, but the founder Lawrence is puts together a list every year of rising seniors who are he calls it his watch list, so to speak, for player of the year. He puts his top. I think it'll wind up being a little over 100 players that get put on the watch list. Only seniors are eligible to win Player of the Year for NWGA football, and we had a senior listed on there, Jackson Lowry, who we saw what he did last year, and I know. I've covered college football several times over the years. Coaches don't make a ton they don't want to make a big deal out of being on a watch list, but you know, it is that time of year, and we got to have something to talk about. So,
Yeah.
with no surprise, Jackson being on there. 12 and a half tackles for loss last year. He's now the career leader in school history in tackles for loss, with an opportunity to make that record even larger in his senior season.
Yeah, and you talk about what a watch list is. It is what it is, but you hope that from a coach's perspective, when you're talking about our players, that it's a good motivating factor and not something that's going to make him feel like he's arrived, and limit his motivation throughout the offseason. But I don't think that he's approaching it that way, because the conversations that I've had with Jackson have been, if I'd have been more coachable and been more fundamentally sound in what Coach Holliday teaches me to do, I might have had 20 tackles for a loss. And I don't know if that's too far-fetched, because he had several that got away from him in the backfield. So I'm hoping the combination of those two things can keep him hungry. And then I hope that can give, obviously, the confidence factor going into the senior season with the kind of career he's had. Then you hope that kind of bleeds to some of our other players on our team and maybe play with a little bit of chip on their shoulder of maybe feeling like they got snubbed from that list.
Well, I mean, it's not like they said he was the best player. It's still saying there's 45 better players out there than Jackson, and not to. I love my man Lawrence, but the omission of Chevy Joyce being on that list was very eye popping to me. Chevy has. You can't tell me there's 80 better football players that are rising seniors in this area than Chevy Joyce. You just can't tell me that. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I know that we're still in the foundational phases of our football program, especially in relation to some of the schools in our area, in terms of the history and those kinds of things. But Chevy's been a starter since he stepped foot on this campus. I don't care where you are. That doesn't happen that often, and the level that he's played in that amount of time. And what we've asked of him. So I feel like you've got to look at everything in perspective to what it is. And I think you say it best, like we say with a couple of other guys that we have on the roster. Chevy Joyce is a football player.
100% a football player. So right now as a team, you've gone through kind of your one-on-ones. I know you like to have, for the returning players, you like to have kind of one-on-ones, end of season meetings, to see where their head space is at, what they want to accomplish. Did they feel like they accomplished their goals this past season? What do they want to accomplish this upcoming year? Well, now we're moving from that to, okay, well, let's start setting the path to accomplish those goals. And that starts right now in the winter weight program with Coach David Elsenrath.
Yeah, and we couldn't be more fortunate with who we've got leading that charge for us, because and this is the way I put it to everybody. I feel like I've got the perfect blend of a guy with the scientific application knowledge of what goes on in that weight room. You're talking about a guy with a master's in kinesiology and years and years of experience of going through that. And he combines that with the mental discipline part that I want in that weight room because, you know, that's kind of your culture builder and that's where you establish the work ethic and the identity of your team because he's with them every day, all year round. So we're so fortunate with that, with what he's able to do with those guys. I think we've got a good plan put in place and excited what we can do in the off season moving towards 2025. I feel like our guys are really hungry based on the one-on-one meetings that we've had because I think they saw the struggles and they saw the reason that there was struggle that was within our control. And I sense a greater commitment of our guys this year. And I kind of demanded that of them. If we don't want to let last year be a waste, then there can't be any excuses in 2025. That's kind of our mission and our battle cry, if you will.
No excuses. That's certainly something I've heard from great coaches over the years. And one thought I had as you were kind of talking a little bit about Coach E and his experience. I know I've heard from so many head coaches over the years when you're able to trust the leader of your strength and conditioning program and know that I don't have to micromanage. I don't have to be here. My players can be with him, and I don't always have to be present in the weight room to know that my players are getting the best demanded out of them. That's a really big deal.
It is. It 100% is. If anything, the reason I need to go in there is to help build our guys up because they're getting they're getting torn down in there. The demand is so high. So, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, if you did not watch, you can go back on our YouTube channel. If you did not watch Coach E's coaching spotlight interview from this past season, I asked him a little bit about kind of the progress, what his favorite part about progressing student athletes is, and one of the quotes he had was, "I make their lives miserable," and I laughed at him. He was dead serious, but he's like, "No, no, no," but in a good way.
Yeah.
But I just found that to be comical because I knew what he was getting at. But one last thing I wanted to mention before we wrap it up on this CreekCast episode here was in reference to some of the stuff that you're going to be doing here with your strength and conditioning in the off season. I know that Coach E, yourself, and a group of coaches all went down to Mobile, Alabama, to go to a coaching clinic. This is kind of one of those parts of the years where you kind of start going to a few different coaching clinics, get some feelers, get some new ideas. What was that all about?
That one was a little bit different than anything that I've been involved with. It was some stuff that we've dabbled with. Coach E's researched it and started to implement some of the strategies, but it was a sprint-based football clinic. And the idea of it is increasing your max speed. And obviously, there's a ton of different ways that they talked about, but the overarching theme and what we're working towards there. Was what the clinic covered. And it was eye-opening for us. And I think it's going to help us as we move forward. Probably the biggest thing that we took away from it was being able to track the data of our guys' speed because, so often, it's easy to hold them accountable in the weight room because they know if they're hitting those goals and they know if they're progressing the way that they're supposed to. But, with the speed part, it's very difficult to determine. Handheld stopwatches are not reliable. There's a lot of human error there.
Yeah.
It's also very inefficient. If you're going to line a bunch of guys up running, whether it be 10s, 20s, 40s, whatever you're doing, that can take 30 minutes of your time if you're clocking those things and then writing it on a clipboard. So we met the quarterback club was on board and made an investment in a laser time system for us that puts stuff right on an app for us as soon as the kids do. Friday morning was actually our first day that we actually used it, kind of a baseline testing. And we ran 25 or 30 guys through in about 5 or 6 minutes. So,
Oh, wow.
we're really excited about the possibilities that's going to give us.
Yeah, and thank you once again to our quarterback club and our booster club members and everyone who gives and supports our program that allows stuff like that to be possible. So, Coach, thank you for your time here. We'll have several more of these Creek casts throughout the off season, whether it be me and Coach Carter or me and whoever is involved with our football program at Coahulla Creek High School. Thank you for tuning in. This has been another edition of CreekCast. We'll see you next time.